Hello everyone and welcome back. With round 1 done, we're going to look at round 2 and I'm going to give you my playoff preview for the second round of the playoffs and after the first round who I have going to the cup final at this point in time. I get to all the details of who I have winning the second round series and who's going to the cup final in my opinion as of right now, coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you for all your support. I'll never do this without you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. And don't forget to comment down in the comment section below. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts on all that was discussed here today. It really does help out the channel as we're on the road to 500 subscribers. And don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below. So in today's video, we got our playoff preview here to discuss. I did one a couple of weeks back just before the first round of the playoffs started. Now that the first round is finished, we're going to do one as of the second round. Now, as of the recording of this video, the Toronto-Florida series has already started, but I'm going to keep with my predictions that I made before the series started. So I'm going to give you my predictions for all 4 second round series and who I have going to the cup final at this point in time. So we'll start off in the Eastern Conference. Now, my predictions in the Eastern Conference were not overly good. In the first round series, I picked Canes to win in 5 games over the Devils, Canadiens to win in 6 games over the Capitals. I picked the Sens in 7 over Toronto, and the Bolts in 6 over Florida. Those were mostly wrong. I got the Carolina one spot on. It was a 5-game series and it was the Hurricanes who came away with the victory, but I got nothing right on the other 3 series. It was Caps in 5, not Habs in 6. It was Panthers in 5, not Bolts in 6, and it was Leafs in 6, not Sens in 7. So some interesting series that I was definitely not right about. So look at the 4 Eastern Conference series, the second round ones. That is the Leafs Panthers and the Canes Caps. We'll start with the Canes and Capitals. This is a very interesting series. These 2 teams have played only once before. That was back in the 2019 year, as the Canes were starting to win in double overtime in Game 7 of the first round that year, en route to what wound up being a conference final appearance that they lost to Boston the year St. Louis won the Cup. So interesting note there. But this is going to be a very intriguing series. For the Canes, they're able to run past the New Jersey Devils. The Devils had a hugely banged up blue line, were extremely injured, so that's why I was expecting this to be a shorter series, and it was. So Carolina made short work with New Jersey. The Caps, on the other hand, played their game for basically the entirety of the first round series and took down the Canadiens in 5 games. The Habs are a very inexperienced team, so I think it's quite safe to say that it was interesting to see that the Caps really did what they wanted to do against the Montreal Canadiens, but the Canadiens held their own. So interesting note there, but it was the Caps who won in 5 games over the Habs. So those were some really interesting first round series in the Metro side of things. So it's going to be a really interesting second round series. So if we look at the forward group, I think the advantage would have to go to the Hurricanes. I think they are a slight bit deeper at this point than the Capitals, but only slight. The Capitals are a very deep forward group team too, and show that in the first round they can score at will. Defensively, Canes I think do have the better defense than the Caps. Once again, slight margins. I do think that the Canes top to bottom have a really good defensive core. I mean, like Walker and Goss on the third pair is insane, but the Caps also have a really solid blue line too. So I think I would give the Canes the defensive edge, and in net, I'm going to give the Caps the goaltending edge because I do think Logan Thompson at this point is a better goaltender than Frederik Andersen, especially with Andersen's health concerns. So interesting out there, but I would give the Caps the edge in net, but the forward and the defensive advantages to the Hurricanes. So in my opinion, I think it's going to be a very interesting series. I think it's going to be a little bit longer than some people expect, but maybe opposed to other people's beliefs, I'm going to take the Carolina Hurricanes in 6 games. I think the Canes upset the Capitals. I think the Capitals are a good team. I wouldn't be surprised if they pushed it to 7 or potentially even won this series. But at this point, I do think that the Carolina Hurricanes, they do really well in second round series. This is just the conference final they can't win in. So I would take the Canes in 6 in the second round series. Going over to the other Eastern Conference series that we see, and that is between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers. Now this is a completely different series than what I was expecting, as I was expecting Tampa, Ottawa, and wanted to be in Toronto, Florida. So interesting out there, we saw the only other time these 2 teams faced in the playoffs 2 years ago in 2023 when the Panthers steamrolled them in 5 games. So it was an interesting series. Both teams have changed drastically since then. The Panthers have since won a cup and been to back-to-back cups, whereas the Leafs, this is only the second time in the last 3 years that they've gone out of round 1. So interesting out there, but these 2 teams are a little bit different at this point in time. If you look at how they did in the first round, Panthers, they steamrolled what I thought was a better Tampa Bay Bolts team. Like, they looked like the much more dominant team in that series, and Florida just steamrolled them. Meanwhile, for Toronto, there were a lot of close games in that series against Ottawa, but they won a couple of overtime games and got it done after taking a 3-0 series lead in 6 games. So it wasn't pretty, but they did wind up getting it done. So this is going to be another very intriguing series. If you look at the forward groups, both teams have really solid top-end talent and pretty good depth. I will give the slight edge on the forward group to Toronto because I do think they are a tiny bit deeper than Florida, but only slight. Defensively, I would give the edge to Florida. Once again, only slight, but I do think that the Panthers blue line, especially with a guy like Nate Schmidt scoring 3 goals in that first round series against Tampa, is a little bit better than Toronto, although Toronto is only a slight bit worse. And in that, while Stolarz was really good, and now he's injured, so Wall's in, I do think that either Stolarz or Wall, whoever's in the net, Bobrovsky is a better goaltender. I mean, he led the Panthers to a cup last year, and I think at this point in time, Bobrovsky, who's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame in a couple of years, is a better goaltender than Stolarz and or Woll. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I think the Panthers defensively in net do have the edge, while offensively I do think the Leafs have the slight edge. So it's a really interesting series. I think these teams stack up pretty well against each other, but just like 2 years ago, I'm going to be picking the Florida Panthers to win this series. I say Panthers in 5, exactly like 2 years ago. I know the Leafs won game 1, but I still feel that the Panthers can win 4 in a row, and even though the Leafs did win the opening game, and personally I would like to see the Leafs move on, because even though I'm a Sens fan, I like to see teams who have not had much success do well, and that would basically be the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I am going to pick the Florida Panthers. So if my predictions hold up, we'll have another Panthers-Hurricanes conference final, just like 2 years ago when the Panthers went to their first cup final in quite some time. Going over to the Western side, you have an interesting Final Four. Now, I actually got more things right in the Western Conference than in the East. In the first round, I predicted the Jets to beat the Blues in 6 games, the Stars to beat the Avs in 7, the Knights to beat the Wild in 5 games, and the Kings to beat the Oilers in 7. I got 3 out of the 4 teams right. I got 1 length correct, so Dallas did wind up winning in 7 games. Winnipeg wound up being St. Louis in 7 games, not 6. Vegas wound up being Minnesota in 6 games, not 5. And it was Edmonton winning in 6 games, not Los Angeles winning in 7. So I'm a little bit more happy with how I've done predicting in the Western Conference. So I feel good predicting who I'm going to be predicting here. So we've got another Knights, Oilers second round matchup, and then we've got the Stars take on the Jets. So we'll start with the Stars and the Jets. This is going to be a very intriguing series. Like we talked about, intriguing first round series. Both had to come back in game 7 to end those series against the Avs and the Blues. Both were interesting. Jets won every home game and lost every road game in that series, while the Stars went toe-to-toe with the Colorado Avalanche back and forth, but Rantanen wound up destroying his old team. So interesting note there, like this is going to be a very entertaining series. It's the first time in playoff history that the Jets and the Stars have played against each other, which is very intriguing. So I can't wait to see who ends up winning this one. Offensively, at this point, I would probably give the slight edge to Dallas. Dallas, in my opinion, is a much deeper team, and especially if Jason Robertson is able to come back at some point in this series. I think the Stars as a whole are a little bit more deeper than the Jets, although the Jets I do think are a pretty deep group as well. Defensively, I would give the slight edge to Winnipeg. I think with Morrissey out, with Haskin out right now, I'm not sure if they'll return at some points or not. I do think that Jets are slightly better defensively, but I think if they were fully healthy, Dallas might have the slight edge with Heiskanen back. So we'll have to wait and see on how the injuries affect it, but as it sits right now, I think Winnipeg does have the better blue line. And in that, as much as he was shaky in the first round playoff series, I am going to give the edge in net to Winnipeg. I think Hellebuck, given the fact he's nominated for a Vezina, he's nominated for a Hart Trophy, he was a great goaltender in the regular season. He didn't do overly good in the playoffs, but if he can rebound and sort of play like he did towards the end of that St. Louis game in the game 7, I think he's going to be a major factor. Basically, I think he could wind up being the thing that either makes or breaks this series for the Jets. So I do give the Jets the slight edge in goal. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, but I'll give the defensive and goaltending edge to the Jets. We'll give the forward edge to the Stars. So at this point in time, this is going to be a very intriguing series. These are 2 heavyweights, the top 2 teams in the Central Division, but I'm going to be picking the President's Trophy winning team to advance to the conference final for the 2nd year in a row, as I'm taking the Jets in 7 games. I think that even though Pierre DeBoer is unbeatable in Game 7s, I think the Jets might be able to squeak away with a Game 7 victory just like they did in Round 1, and that will be able to advance into their first conference final since 2018. But I could easily see the Dallas Stars winning that series. And lastly, going over to another Knights-Oilers second round matchup. We saw this 2 years ago. It was the only other time these 2 teams have faced in the playoffs. That was back in 2023 on the Golden Knights. We're up 1-0, we're up 2-1, but then won the series in 6 games. That was en route to their first ever Stanley Cup win. Edmonton. So it's interesting out there. The Knights, they had a lot more trouble than I was expecting with the Wild, but they did wind up getting through them, while the Oilers had to claw their way back in each and every game against Los Angeles, but they did. And the Kings, because of their tendency to blow leads, did wind up losing 4 straight and blew that series and lost in 6. So the Oilers are interesting, the Knights are interesting. If you look at these two teams' forward groups, offensively, I would give the slight edge to the Edmonton Oilers because of the firepower up front, although I think Vegas may have a slight bit deeper of a team. Defensively, definitely going to give it to Vegas. That bruising, hard to play against defensive core that they have, where they have extremely solid D pairs, I think is much more stable than an Edmonton Oilers team who does not have Matthias Ekholm at this point. And in net, Hill and Picard are both really good goaltenders, especially with the way Picard played in the first round, but I am still giving the edge in net to Vegas with Aiden Hill. So I'm giving the defensive edge, the goaltending edge to Vegas. I'm giving the forward edge to Edmonton. So in my opinion, this is going to be a similar series to the second round series we saw 2 years ago, as I'm doing the exact same thing with the Florida-Toronto series. I'm picking the exact same thing as it was 2 years ago. I say Knights in 6. Now, once again, this might just be my bias because I'm a Knights fan, but besides that, I do think the Knights are the better team, and I think if they can hold on to leads and not blow them, then I think that this Knights team should be able to get by the Edmonton Oilers. I could easily see the Oilers push this in 7. Wouldn't be surprised if the Oilers wound up getting out of this second round series against Vegas, but I am going to take the Golden Knights in 6 games. So that would match up with conference finals of a 2023 conference final rematch of Panthers-Canes and a 2018 conference final rematch of Knights and Jets. So if we go to the Eastern Conference side, these two teams stack up pretty well against each other. The Canes, forward-wise, I think would have the deeper forward group, but only slightly, because I do think that they are top to bottom a little bit deeper than the Panthers, but these two teams, both really deep groups. Defensively, I would give the slight edge to Carolina, just like I said, because of all their solid deep players. But I would say that Florida's only slightly behind. And in net, I do think Bobrovsky is a way better goaltender at this point than Frederik Andersen is, even though Andersen's a pretty good goaltender. So all in all, I would say at this point, I would give the Panthers the goaltending edge and the Canes the defense and the forward edge. So in my opinion, if that was the conference final matchup, I'm going to say close to what happened 2 years ago. I'm going to say Panthers take it in 5 games. At this point, it just seems that the Carolina Hurricanes just cannot win in conference finals, which is extremely weird. I would not be one bit surprised if they maybe push it to 6 or 7, maybe finally got a couple of conference final wins, but I mean, they always seem to get swept in the conference final once they make it. So I'm going to say Panthers in 5 to advance to their 3rd consecutive Stanley Cup final. Going over to the Knights and the Jets, it's a rematch of the 2018 conference final when the Knights went to their first ever cup in their first ever year when they took down the Winnipeg Jets in the conference final. Offensively, these two teams are really good. I would give the slight edge, as long as they're healthy, to the Winnipeg Jets. Offensively, I do think they have a tiny bit of a deeper forward group than the Knights do, but only slightly. Defensively, Knights way better defensively. Top to bottom, that defense is scary. And in net, once again, even though he's looked shaky in the playoffs, I would give the edge to Connor Hellebuyck, because even though Aiden Hill's a really good goaltender, Hellebuyck's one of the best in the world right now. So I would give the slight edge to the Jets in net. So I give the Jets the edge in net and up front, but I would give the Knights the defensive edge. So I think this will be a longer series than some people would probably expect, but I would take the Knights in 6 games. I would say that Vegas is able to take another conference final win and upset the Winnipeg Jets. And even though I like to see teams who have not ever won a cup, and that would be Winnipeg, so even though the Knights are one of my favorite teams, I would not mind seeing the Winnipeg Jets get to the cup final. I would say that would be a Knights in 6. So that would set up the second time in 3 years we'd see a Stanley Cup final of Panthers versus Golden Knights. This would be a very interesting series. Offensively, I would say the Panthers, top to bottom, would probably have the slight edge offensively. Defensively, I would say the Vegas Golden Knights, top to bottom, a little bit of a better defensive core. And in net, I would say that Bobrovsky is a little bit better of a goaltender than Aiden Hill is. So unlike 2 years ago, I'm going to flip the script. I'll say Panthers win back-to-back cups, getting there for the 3rd straight year, and take down the Vegas Golden Knights in 6 games. I think it will be a long series. I think it will be a hard-fought series. But after fighting tooth and nail just to get to the cup again, I am going to say that the Florida Panthers win back-to-back Stanley Cups. And for the 3rd time in the last decade, we will have back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, as the Panthers will join the Bolts and the Penguins to have done it. So definitely, that's my updated playoff preview as it sits right now. That's who I think will win the second round and how I think the conference final and Stanley Cup final will go. I'll show you my bracket as it sits right now. But But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you disagree with me? Do you think that the Leafs maybe have a better chance than I'm giving them against the Florida Panthers? Do you think that the Jets won't be able to win against the Dallas Stars? Do you think Edmonton's too much of a powerhouse for the Vegas Golden Knights? And do you think Ovechkin is going to lead his Capitals to another conference final appearance? Definitely. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, and love to hear your guys' thoughts on who you think is going to win these second round series down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk for today. Remember to like this video, and if you're liking, remember to subscribe below. Thank you for all your support. It really is helpful to the channel. We're on the road to 500 subscribers, so if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below, and hopefully leave a comment down in the comment section below. I also have a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that, so check that out. I've linked that down in the description below. Can't see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.